Hello Year 9, welcome to week 2. I wonder what the weather's like today. I've no idea. The day I'm recording this, the ground is covered in snow. We shall see. So I've included to start this week's PowerPoint off the model paragraph that you will have written down into your books, onto your device last week, and then gone through and colour-coded different parts of that paragraph. So making sure that you are talking about Miller and what Miller does, making sure you are putting your quotes in, and remember you do a longer quote to begin with, and then you pick a word out of that longer quote and you focus on that a number of times through your paragraph. The green underlining is my subject terminology. So here I was writing about adjectives. And then the yellow, if you remember, was about having that wide, high-level vocabulary of your own that helps you to explain in a really strong and a really convincing way. So I'm going to read through the paragraph with you because your main focus in today's lesson is to create your own independent paragraph looking at the character of Mary Warren. Okay, here we go. In Act 1, Miller presents Mary Warren as a very frightened and anxious character. He uses stage directions to tell us that she was a subservient, naive, lonely girl. Miller's use of the three adjectives subservient, naive, lonely, make it clear that Mary is a very meek and childlike character and terrified of being accused of witchcraft. The fact that Miller uses the adjective subservient first emphasises the idea that she is not a leader and tends to follow the stronger people around her. The word subservient has connotations of being obedient, which gives the impression of Mary Warren always doing what other people tell her because she is too frightened and innocent to argue with them or say what she thinks. Miller presents the character of Mary at the start of the play as a young girl who has got caught up with Abigail Williams and her behaviour, not because she wanted to, but because she felt she couldn't say no, because she was subservient to the other girls. Okay, really nice paragraph there. Ticks a lot of boxes that your teacher will be looking for, and that is your model. That is where you're going to refer back to when you are writing your independent paragraph today. Right, folks, on to the next slide. Right, in front of you is another reminder from last week. It is the quotes that you will have written down for Mary Warren from Act 1 and Act 2. Just like the previous slide, these are here as a reminder, as a memory jogger, as it's been the weekend and you're supposed to have done an Educate quiz and you're supposed to have done a reading lesson. In amongst it all. So this is just reminding you of those quotes. Last week we looked at that top quote from Act 1, she's 17, a subservient, naive, lonely girl. And today I'm selecting the quote for you from Act 2. We are going to look at the final quote here. With a stamp of her foot, I'll not be ordered to bed no more. Okay, so that's our focus for today. That is the quote you're going to be writing your paragraph about. We're going to do some quote explosion first. Okay, see you on the next slide. In the green box in the centre, you will see that quote focus. With a stamp of her foot, I'll not be ordered to bed no more. Before we do our sort of quote explosion and think more deeply about Miller's choice of language there, I would like you to write today's date. and underline it, and then the title for today, how has Mary Warren changed in Act 2? So date, title, underlined please, and then you need to write the quote in the centre with some space around it. You don't need it right in the centre, it's not going to take your whole page to do this, but perhaps sort of half the top of a page, okay, because we're going to make some notes around it. Right, pause me whilst you do those three things: date, title, both underlined, and the quote in the middle of your page. Thank you. Right, I want you to consider three separate parts of this quote. I want you to think about stage direction with a stamp of her foot, okay, that's in brackets, which reminds us it is a stage direction. I then want you to think about the negative language that Mary Warren uses in this piece of speech, and then I want you to think about the verb ordered. Okay, the words in red and bold are your subject terminology words. Okay, so they are references which you must have whichever bit you are talking about in your paragraph. Remember, if you were to flick back to the first screen of today, you would find three adjectives and the word adjective both underlined in green from my model paragraph, because you must put that subject terminology in. You must show your knowledge and understanding. Right, each of the boxes here, the three of them, contain some questions, and that is how I would like you to annotate this quote today. I would like you, please, to look at each box and write yourself short answers as your quote explosion comments. Okay, so for example, let's talk through the first one. Stage directions, the verb stamp. Why did Miller include this direction? So why does he make her stamp her foot at this moment? What does it tell us about how she's feeling? And how does this show she has changed? Okay, so my model paragraph is about Mary Warren in Act 1. Your independent paragraph is going to be about Mary Warren in Act 2. So around where you've written your quote, you would answer those questions. And then you've got questions about the negative language that's been used, and then you've got questions about the verb ordered. Okay, so you need to pause me and have a go at answering those questions. Okay, and then I'll see you on the next slide. And just in case you got a bit stuck with one or more of those sets of questions that you've just been answering, I've put my answers here on the support page. Okay, so if you were a bit stuck, or if you missed one out completely, you can use my suggestions here to complete that task. The task must be completed, don't just ignore it. You must create this explosion either or through your own work or by using mine to help and support you. Okay, so if you are using this page, pause me now, and then you can get on with completing that work before you move to the next slide. Before you wrote down my model paragraph last week, you created some mind maps which included synonyms for subservient, naive, and lonely. Remember, a synonym is a word that means the same thing, but can be used to stop you repeating that original word again and again. So on the screen in front of you, you've got two columns. You've got Act 1 and Act 2. In the Act 1 column, I've given you the three words we looked at last week: subservient, lonely and naive, and I've given you examples of synonyms for each of those words. And at the bottom, I've given you a simile that we could use to describe Mary Warren if we wanted to, saying that in Act 1 she was like a mouse. Okay, she was very timid, she was very meek, lacking in confidence, etc. On the right-hand side, you have a similar column, but this time for Act 2. So in my head, when I created this video, that column is going to help you to write the best paragraph that you are capable of. So I have given you 3 starting words. No, I haven't, I'm lying. I've given you 2 starting words here. Because in Act 2, Mary Warren has become more confident and she has become more brave. So I've given you 3 synonyms for each of those words. So for confident, we can also use certain, assertive, and self-assured. And if we're saying that she has become brave, since Act 1, we can say that she's bold, she's firm, and a really high-level word, resolute. If you are resolute in something, that means that people, whatever they say, cannot change your mind, cannot change your opinion. And then the next box is, we could always explain our ideas about Mary Warren's change by using the opposite of Act 1. So in Act 1, we might have said she was obedient. Well, we can now say that she is no longer obedient in Act 2. She is no longer childlike and she is no longer meek. So we can still use that high-level vocabulary from Act 1, but we just need to say that she is the opposite of that. And then I put a little simile at the bottom there. She is more like a lion in Act 2 than the mouse that she was in Act 1. Okay, so it's a helping tool that I've created for you. I hope you find it useful. You don't need to copy it down unless you want to copy it down, so you don't have to keep referring back to it. That is completely up to you. Okay, we need to move ahead now to our final checklist before we actually get on and write the paragraph. And here we are, all the teaching, all the learning, all the preparation done, ready for you to write this independent paragraph. Please do not send me or your teacher an image of a paragraph that is 3 or 4 lines long. That is not following the model paragraph you have been given, and it is not making the most of the teaching that you have listened to and the activities that you have gone through. You must do all of the following things. You must remember to open with a point, an idea about the character of Mary Warren and how she is in Act 2. You must write about what Miller does, what his ideas were. You must use the full quote near the beginning of your paragraph. It doesn't open a paragraph, a quote. The quote should appear in your second sentence, but it's the full quote, the one that we have been looking at. You then need to focus on a single word from that quote. So you might decide to focus on the stage direction verb of stamp, or you might decide to focus on the negative language, or you might decide to focus on the verb ordered. And then you explore that word, you microscope it, you zoom in on that word and how it works. You need to name what device Miller has used. Well, I've done that bit for you because on the quote explosion page that you've done, I've put the device, the subject terminology in red. So that should be that box ticked. You then need to repeat the focus word more than once as you explain it. If you're unsure about that, go back to the first screen of this video where I have put my model paragraph. Or if you're working in a book and you've got that model paragraph on a previous page, look at that. Do not ignore the helping tools that I have put in place for you. And finally, use a wide vocabulary range to explain your focus word. And remember, I've done that on the previous slide to this one. I've given you confident, I've given you brave and synonyms you could use. And I've also given you use the opposite from Act 1, and I've also given you the simile to use. There is no reason why anybody should be writing a paragraph that is less than 3/4 to a side long as a handwritten paragraph. You have the rest of the lesson to complete this paragraph. I do not expect you to just chuck words onto the page in any old order and think that that is good enough. We need to make sure your skills and your understanding and your work is moving forward. So you need to put the effort in, and you need to use the helping tools that I have given you in this video and the previous video to help you write a thorough, well-structured, para 3 wanted, convincing paragraph about how Mary Warren has changed in Act 2. On the next slide, I've got sentence openers to help those of you who are a little bit less self-assured in your work. I don't want anyone sitting there thinking they don't know how to start, or they don't know what they're doing. There are many of you though in Year 9 who do not need to use those sentence openers. Be honest with yourself. Should you be challenging your mind and your pen to put words onto the paper without those sentence openers? I'll leave that up to you. But the rest of the lesson, and I make it, you've got about 20-25 minutes to create this paragraph. Focus, think, rethink, and write accurately. Right, folks, I look forward to seeing those paragraphs, as I'm sure all the other English teachers will, and I'll see you in tomorrow's lesson.